Hello and welcome to Clusters. At the beginning of Acts chapter 10, we're introduced to Cornelius, a centurion in the Italian regiment of the Roman army. Chapter 11 verse 3 tells us he's uncircumcised and so he's a Gentile. Yet he's a God-fearing man who gives generously and prays regularly. However, something's missing. He doesn't yet know Jesus. And so God sends an angel to him to tell him where he can find the apostle Peter, who we discover is still in Joppa, where he'd been when he raised Dorcas to life. You remember, she's the one in the east window at Trinity with her spinning wheel. Now it's Peter's turn to receive a message from God, this time through a vision after he'd fallen into a trance while praying. And what a peculiar dream it is, and it's all about Israel's very strict food laws. You probably know that the law contains many things that could make a person unclean. And to be made clean in the eyes of God, the temple and people, you'd have to present yourself to the temple and undergo a purifying ritual. You might want to discuss what this means for us today. Part of the law given to Moses governs what you can eat. Famously, it prohibits the eating of any pig products, ham, bacon, gammon, pork, because pigs are considered unclean. But the law also prohibits the eating of, among other things, shellfish, amphibians, carnivorous animals and animals that don't have a split hoof. Now, many of these are not usually part of traditional British cuisine. We don't tend to eat dogs, cats, frogs or horses, for instance. But in Peter's dream, it seems these laws are completely done away with. All foods are now acceptable. All are made clean. And this backs up something Jesus had already taught, albeit a bit obliquely, in Mark chapter 7. However, this doesn't just apply to food, as we'll see. And so it's as Peter is contemplating his vision that the men sent by Cornelius arrive at the house where he's staying, and he sets off with them to go to Caesarea. When he and his party arrive, Cornelius greets him by falling at his feet. Peter tells him to get up because he is, after all, only a man. But then in verse 28 he says, "You are well aware that it is against our law for a Jew to associate with a Gentile or visit him. But God has shown me that I should not call any man impure or unclean." Peter realizes that his vision, which showed that the law that made certain animals unclean was no longer in force, would also apply to people. Gentiles were no longer considered unclean by dint of them simply being Gentiles. And he adds in verse 34, "I now realize how true it is that God does not show favoritism, but accepts men from every nation who fear him and do what is right." As a result of Peter preaching at his home, Cornelius and those who believed were baptized there and then. Next Wednesday is a mission training evening, and it would be great to see many of you there. But until then, have a great cluster.